Am I on? Yeah, I was waiting for the cue to start. So, welcome everybody. This panel is going to take place in English because we have some international guests on stage. Feel free at the end of this panel discussion, we open up for questions to the audience. Feel free to ask them in German. If and when needed, we will find a translator somewhere to get it over in English. My name is Marco de Ruiter. I'm Managing Director of Fox International Channels in Germany. And again, I would like to welcome you all to the 2015 Fox panel discussion on the Medientage. In September of this year, Mark Zuckerberg stated that in 5 years' time, his service will be smart enough to know what kind of content you would like to see as an individual Facebook user, in order, as he claims it, to avoid to show you pictures and videos that you don't want to see. On the other hand, a year ago, in September 2014, in the same Süddeutsche Zeitung, there was an article with a title which is difficult to translate in English. But the title of the article was Die Krake im Wohnzimmer, which had as a central premise that the TV set will become the spy in the living room, which frames a pretty Orwellian 1984-like picture of the role of connected television in the German TV households. So that kind of set the stage for our discussion topic of today about understanding consumer behavior in the age of big data, or as we would like to label it, as advanced television or targeted addressable TV. This overarching label for using is actually used for viewing data captured on individual devices, which improves or tends to improve the viewing experience for individual users and or improves the communication and promotional capabilities of the TV platform. We at Fox believe this is a very important topic for us in the very near future. Because in the first place, we believe that we always have to put our audience first, and we see the potential of addressable TV to improve the viewing experience. Secondly, we think that data-driven TV advertising can help us to bolster our advertising revenues. But let's talk about the viewing experience first. One of the companies on stage here, one of our guests, is able to create a profile of you based on your daily patterns and your emotional mood, which they capture from your wearable devices. In how far does adapting programming or commercials based on the data lead to a better experience for the viewer? Both, on the other side, in advertising, both the future and the death of classical TV advertising is being debated now for over a decade. The fact of the matter is, TV advertising is a tale of two cities. TV, as everybody claims, which is true, is still the most effective reach mechanism in advertising. Nevertheless, in an average month in Germany, 62.5 million people over 14 years are watching television. But of the 62.5 million viewers, only 500,000 of them are not watching the big 8 channels. So, what is the role of the dozens of other, both free and pay TV channels, that are basically being watched only by an incremental 500,000 viewers? What is their role, and what will be their role in the future? Because they used to be used for targeting, finding news lovers, sports lovers, young people, old people, and genre specifics. But for targeting individual viewers or segments of viewers, the internet is currently way ahead of the capabilities of the TV platform. And to put a number on that, in a recent eMarketeer article, 70% of the US and UK marketeers said that they have moved, so not will move, but have moved budgets from television into programmatic video on the internet. The company of 2 of our other panelists are basically providing the raw materials to the TV platform for data-driven advertising. And a real-life case is, for instance, finding out which people have watched Jurassic Park movies, what kind of other content did people who watched Jurassic Park movies watched in the past weeks, and basically targeting the tickets and the advertising for the new Jurassic Park, no, the Jurassic World movie, sorry for that, only to the people who watched those movies on the television platform. So today we are going to debate the following questions with our panel. First, can data improve the TV experience? And on the other side, can data save the advertising future of thematic TV. We do that with a group of international and German industry experts. And if you want to in the audience, you can participate in this discussion by sending your questions or remarks over Twitter with hashtag TV needs more data. You can do that while we speak, or you can continue the discussion afterwards. I look forward to engage with you in that. So I'm very proud to be on stage with this group of experts and thought leaders. And before we start the discussion, I would like to introduce them to you. On my left side, starting on my left side, we have Bruce Gerlich, Chief Research Officer of Rentrack. Next to Bruce, we have Peter Christmann, CEO of Goldbach, Germany. We have Abbas Tahzib, Senior Vice President, Europe and Africa for Sentiance. We have Martin Miall, Managing Director of Sky Media, and we have Laurence Miall, the CEO from TV Beat. So. And I'm going to introduce them all by asking them to do a short introduction on themselves and on the company they represent. Before we go to Bruce, on your block you write, now that I have gray hair and I'm horizontally challenged, I can speak with some authority on advertising and research issues. That said, that makes you the perfect guest for our panel of today. But you also represent a very exciting company called Rentrack. And for the people who have been tracking the data-driven TV space, they know Rentrack as a company. The case that Rentrack became famous about, and the case that also traveled outside of the industry geeks, is the fact that the Obama campaign team used the Rentrack data and supposedly won the 2012 elections by using your data. Before you introduce Rentrack, let's look at a small, short video of Rentrack, and then I hand over to you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Roll the tape.
I could do an interpretive dance of the tape. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what Rentrack is about. We are measuring movies everywhere in the world, basically 50 countries. Video on demand. We are in Europe, in Spain, with, I'm going to mangle the word, with Presea, which is now owned by Telefonica. So we have a toehold in video on demand in Europe. We measure video on demand extensively with a census-based measurement in the United States. And as you saw there, we're measuring television viewership through 18 million homes, basically 36 million televisions. And we're taking that database, that massive and passive database, and merging it in a privacy-protected way with other databases, such as automobile ownership, political preference, credit card usage, debit card usage, and thereby being able to produce ratings about product users rather than just age, sex. So when it comes to the idea of advanced demographics, demographics beyond age, sex, in television, that is a space that we essentially own in the United States. And we do that through the collection of massive and passive data sets and through merging those data sets. So I just want to make sure that you understand what we're doing in the TV space.
Thank you, Bruce. As said, next to you we have Peter Christmann, who as an industry personality I think is probably very well known in Germany. You don't need any further introduction for that, but your new company Goldbach, Goldbach Germany might not be that well known. Nevertheless, as far as I know, Goldbach Germany has been the first company in Germany that actually aired an addressable TV spot a few months ago. So what more can we expect from Goldbach Germany in driving the development of data-driven advertising?
We are purely focused on video. We started this journey at the beginning of the year. Martin Kaff and I 2 years ago had this idea to establish in Germany a fully fledged video sales house, aggregating assets in different areas like television and online video and smart TV and screens in the public area. So basically accompanying the customer on air, online, on the go and on the ground to have really the whole journey along the day covered by relevant media. And I think we have been experiencing quite a good start, but we have still a lot of way ahead. And it's a very challenging and very thrilling experience. What we would like to do basically is to put all those assets, all those contexts, all those video contexts that we gather on a programmatic platform and make it very easily accessible for the demand side. Basically have a plug-and-play solution offering a universal socket for the universal plug coming from the trading desk, and then grabbing all the inventory, our video inventory or video audience that we have just through one very simple connection. And obviously you need data, you need currencies to really show what kind of performance you have in your portfolio, and that's something that you have been managing already in the States, but we are lacking in Germany, and that's something that we need as an industry, joint industry standard. We're not going to do own research pieces, but that's for sure a very important piece of value that we need to establish in Germany.
Thank you, Peter. Next to you we have Abbas. Abbas, you represent a very young and exciting technology company.
True.
And I know Sentiance now for 2 years, and I'm still trying to find out whether I'm amazed by what you do or dead scared. So, as a technology company rooted in mobile and wearable devices, how do you think as a TV ecosystem we can leapfrog the capabilities of the internet?
It's a great question, Marco, and thank you for the invite. You know, I had the great pleasure over a decade ago to establish some of the first video and mobile ad networks in Europe. And one of the big challenges that we had was the audience data, be able to capture that. And today, it's still a challenge, but I'm encouraged by companies like Rentrack and TV Beat that we have these great companies that can capture this audience data. But the data that is being captured by these wonderful companies is very much drawn to that moment that you're watching TV or watching a piece of content. But why should you stop there? Why should you stop based on those few minutes or a couple of hours that you watch that piece of content? The day is 24 hours. You want to be able to capture much more data from that user to understand who that person is, what their behaviors are like, and what their moods are like. We as a company, we have built a technology which allows us to capture this type of data on a 24-hour basis from mobile devices. And through that, we can understand the context, location, and moods that a person is in to be able to provide, number one, great content, number two, a relevant advertising experience, and number three, the opportunity to get that user to take action. And that's something that in advertising we see too little. We see great advertisement campaigns, but the call to action is not always there. So that's what we're trying to achieve, Marco, as a company, and I'm very happy to be here and to talk more about that.
Thank you. Next to you is Martin, the second blogger on stage. On your blog, you invite us to enter into a discussion with you on all relevant topics that concern the TV industry. So I'm happy to do that on stage with you. We also know you as managing director for Sky Media, in which you represent obviously the Sky channels, but also a portfolio of thematic TV channels. And recently, I think it was on Demexco, you announced the AdSmart technology from the UK to launch that in Germany as well. In your introduction, can you also shed some light on how AdSmart is going to disrupt the TV advertising industry in Germany? Happy to hear that.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Big data and addressable advertising or addressable TV is one of the most upcoming stories for the market. And in the last couple of months, I was asked by agencies and advertising clients a lot about the situation in Germany. What about the big data projects? What about AdSmart in Germany? What about other solutions? My answer is, be care, don't worry. We just build up the systems. We are in the middle of a process to understand about the possibilities to use the data. We are in the middle in discussions about regulations, and we just start to build up the technology. Pictures are better than 1,000 words. What happened with AdSmart, I have a video, and I think this will show you what's happened in the UK with AdSmart and addressable advertising. If it starts.
You're still happy?
Watching TV is the nation's #1 pastime. So it's no wonder that television advertising has such power and impact. And now we've turned it into a whole new ballgame. Welcome to Sky AdSmart. Advertisers looking for specific audiences, but using a mass medium, can now combine the unrivaled power of TV, our in-depth knowledge of Sky households, advertisers' own consumer insights, and Sky's new targeting technology. Sky AdSmart enhances the power of TV, giving you greater control over who is seeing which commercial, in which location, and how many times they see it. You choose your specific audience from our wide selection, agree the campaign terms, and let Sky AdSmart do the rest. So now you're free to use TV in an entirely new way. You could show Brummies, the city version, or focus on mummies with the baby version, or mix and match your audiences and show yummy Brummy mummies, the luxury version. To make all this possible, we've effectively turned Sky Plus HD boxes into dynamic ad servers, which can place spots seamlessly into ad breaks when households match the selected audience attributes. Not only very clever, but very simple too. With our advanced data, it'll be easy to track campaign performance and report the results in the detail you need. There are many ways to use Sky AdSmart. Select the exact buying audience you need. Advertise only in cities. Take greater control over frequency. Show your creative work in an exact order. Play different messages to different viewers. Show your ads more often to your core audience. Sky AdSmart, the power of TV enhanced. Sky, believe in better.
Impressive. Next on stage is Laurence, representing another very young and very exciting European technology company, TVbeat. Laurence, can you introduce TVbeat to us and help us understand that there's no such thing as a 0 rating?
Great. Thank you, Marco, and folks for having us here. My name is Laurence. I'm the CEO of TVbeat. After 15 years of work in the media industry, I was frustrated that all my decisions on content acquisition, channel distribution, packaging were made on gut feeling. So I joined a startup, and like every startup, we went on a promise that this industry was broken. 250 billion of advertising money and 250 billion of subscription monies are still traded and measured on a very tiny sample. AGF in Germany, Barb in the UK, SKO in Holland, etc. So at TVbeat, we have realized that the world had changed. 5 years ago, people didn't have iPads. Very little content was there, but there has been 3 major changes in the last 5 years. First one is the proliferation of content thanks to IP distribution. Second is the multiplication of device. And the third is the fact that people, because there's so much content and because there's so many great devices, people connect even the set-top box, which means that everything can be measured. There's no need for sample. We can do this on census. So at TV Beat, we partner with companies like Deutsche Telekom outside Germany to date, but hopefully soon in Germany as well, another pay TV operator, and we collect all of their census data from set-top box switches to mobile launch, and we measure that as a complementary analytic tool for trading and TV audience measurement.
Clear. So thanks for your introductions. Let's go into the first round of discussion. First round, I would like to discuss with the panel what drives or what can accelerate the adoption of advanced or targeted TV in Germany. So to start with the US perspective in this, Bruce, in your opinion, what has been the driver that in 2015 data-driven advertising or the focus on data by the TV industry has moved so much into the limelight?
Well, I think it's very much the way Lauren said, which is now you have the technological capability to do this, to do it in two ways. Number one, to bring back the data from the set-top boxes or other devices that are essentially serving it up, and you can do that on a massive, passive, or even census level, so you get millions upon millions of data points, which you can't have in a panel. Second, with that a massive amount of viewing behavior collected passively, you can merge that with other data sets, other behavioral data sets, purchase data sets, the way the folks at Sky appear to be doing it in the UK. So that combination of being able to get the viewing data, to being able to get the purchase data, to being able to merge it together, and then finally being able to serve that to the industry and systems that they can use, all of that has enabled this to happen. And it's really happening, I think, on two levels in the States. Number one, it's happening on just simply taking regular television time, regular commercial time, and saying, well, what is the best concentration of my audience within the regular 30-second commercial that you're selling normally? So we see that happening in political, we see that happening in automotive very heavily in the United States with our data set. And then the second level is more akin to what's happening with Sky, which is addressable, different forms of addressable. So we see that happening very much with our operator partners such as DirecTV and Dish, who are selling different forms of addressable television. That is, it's not simply everybody in that 30-second audience, but you're selling segments of people within that audience to specific advertisers. So all this really relies upon having the massive data sets that you can bring together that just was not possible in a sample-based world.
Before we move into the German perspective from this, Laurence, you're active in already some European countries. You're doing pilots in countries we cannot disclose, but fortunately there are also countries you can disclose that you operate on. Can you talk a little bit about how far the TV ecosystem is changing itself based on the data you're basically bringing into it?
I'll bring you a couple of facts. But let's rewind. There's a lot of discussion about addressable advertising. Everybody's very excited about digital video. Our premise is that we already realize there's a lot of inventory of smaller channels, and you mentioned zero rating earlier, that are not addressed today. 65%, in fact, of channels will have a zero rating problem because the sample that they are measured on are just so small. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we're seeing is we have a boiling frog syndrome here. The industry has already changed. 25% of people in Slovenia have a weekly reach on another device. Now, you might say the rating is still small, but it's in the single digits. It's not at all measured, and it's not traded. Second thing we see is people make appointment to view. This industry is going to be more and more consumer-led. Before, it was very much TV broadcaster providing a schedule, and you had to watch at the time it was scheduled for. not people make appointment to view. And as a result, people who watch on-demand content spend on average 3 times more time watching the selected content because they wanted to go and see that piece of content. The third thing we see is everybody is scared about Netflix, but in traditional advertising markets, Netflix is put down. It's just a few people. It's not really. In Belgium, we've done a pilot, and we have seen that Netflix reach is already 10%, and it's in the single digit of rating. So it's taking over linear channel. And the boiling front syndrome is like, we believe the industry is not really changing. One day, we will wake up and we'll be dead like the publishing industry unless we react. And we believe, and from what I'm hearing in Germany here, is finally the industry is starting to think about reacting.
That's a great point. So taking this discussion into Germany, Martin, you're launching AdSmart. Goldbach is using HBB TV to basically get to the consumer. From the pre-discussion we've had with the panel members, they discussed also, based on their experience, different ways of trading this new data set. So it's not only about getting a new currency in, because traditionally this debate always goes back to, okay, is AGF doing a good job? Yes or no? I think that's something we should not discuss. It's about finding ways of how can you use additional data to trade your GOPs in a better way. So taking this into Germany, what do you see that is needed in Germany to get this going? Sky is taking a lot of initiatives, but what should the rest of the ecosystem do to move this forward?
Yeah, basically, you mentioned it. We have, on one side, we have a panel that is there for decades, and it was established when we had like 5 stations out there that were measured on, probably at that time, on 3,000 households. Now we have 5,000 households and 12,000 people, representing the universe of more than 1,000 stations that are measured in Germany. And it's clear that probably 900 out of them cannot be representatively measured in a panel of 5,000 people. So we definitely, that's our perspective, we have to move into a census added measurement to this panel. It has to be probably a fusion of both opportunities. We have tested this first time a full video ad in the HBB TV households, where you can measure, obviously, the TV consumption, and you have the opportunity to select different households or different clients based on the IP address and send them a targeted advertising. But this is on a very low level, because we do not have any information about those households. We just have the IP address. And as long as we do not have a new European directive in terms of data protection, and we won't go further, we won't step further in this. But this is a tiny first step into a new world of addressable television in Germany, and I'm sure also smart TV sets will be in the position to cater for targeted advertising in the future. It's just the discussion around making it technologically feasible and getting there also politically. So we are really at the beginning of a new era also in Germany in terms of doing things differently. For the time being, we're coming from the area one to many. We had just one commercial catering or serving millions of people. In the future, we'll have not millions, but very many commercials serving one consumer in different situations, that he will be addressable, being in television, being on his mobile device, or in the public area. So this will be a very challenging opportunity for the agencies, for production companies to also produce commercials differently vis-a-vis the production methods that we have as of today, which are linear. We've seen with Visible World in the States that this has been also already developed very successfully, like I think 12, 13 years ago now, bought by Comscore. So we are entering a completely different world in terms of opportunities, programmatic creative, algorithms will be steering also video commercials on different devices, census-based measurements, And all these kinds of opportunities that will be at the bottom of making advertising much more compelling to consumers. We have been assisting yesterday in the opening speech from Mrs. Merkel, also the fact that ad blockers are an issue, and we have to do something in terms of creative ways of delivering videos to the consumers. But it's also a fact of socialization. We have also to do something on the consumer side to make clear that nothing is at the end for free. Either I pay with money or I pay with my attention. So there are very, very many aspects to this new world that have to be touched, and we have to develop these from different angles, these ingredients to make video advertising really the one commodity for brand management.
I think before we move into what this all means for the consumer, I think, Martin, I heard you yesterday in another panel on big data, and I kind of was triggered by you use the R word, regulation. I think to get to the point is what should drive this and what enables this in the German market. I think we have to talk about regulation. So can you have a pretty strong stance on this. Can you keep it short but still bring it into the discussion?
Yeah. But before I do that, I just want to agree that, from my point of view, that's absolutely necessary that we have to create a new measurement system in Germany. What's about media using in Germany? So our traditional measurement, AGF data, are all only using the linear system. We don't have any transparency. What's about nonlinear? What's about mobile, and so on. And it's the same. We have a couple of broadcasters or channels with 0 ratings. It depends, especially in the daytime, where we see 70 to 80% 0 ratings, but we know that there is a usage there. So I think this is really, really important to have the discussion for new systems or additional systems. But to give you the answer, what's happened in the discussion with data using in Germany. At first, what is shown with AdSmart, this is something what's happened in the UK. They launched AdSmart in 2014. From my point of view, it's the most successful and best with the best functionality all over Europe. But if you ask me when AdSmart will start in Germany, I can't give you the exact data. I expect that we will start in mid of 2017 or end of 2017, because we have to build up now the technology and to give you the answer, and we are in the middle of discussion. For example, the last months we had the discussion with Berlin about the regulation of geotargeting for TV. So it's in Germany it's forbidden for German broadcasters to work with geotargeting. Only an example. If you're a TV manufacturer, like Samsung, LG, what else, it's easy to send a pre-roll on your TV as Samsung, LG, what else, on a smart TV. It's possible. The same will be possible for YouTube. If you use YouTube on your smart TV, geotagging is possible. But if you're RTL, ProSieben, or Sky, it's forbidden. I'm sorry, I can't understand that. Nobody can understand that. So we have to discuss that. And the problem is that we only talk about or discuss about geotargeting. Geotargeting is one targeting possibility. My colleagues are able to handle with more than 60 targeting possibilities, like gender, male, female, household size, household net income, the mood, interests, and so on. So we are talking about much more than geo-tagging. And this is something what we have to discuss now, because the technology is more or less, ready. Yeah? But it needs, I think, the next 2 years to have all, to cut all question marks. What we have, so I expect that we will start not before mid of 2017.
Could I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I make one comment from the US perspective, particularly when it comes to the question of zero ratings. What we have found is that we're able to report on over 250 television networks as opposed to the sample currency, which can only report on about 100. So you have two things happening. Number one, much more depth of being able to report on the small networks. And then the question of zero cells pretty much goes away because you have such a huge footprint. And then third, what also happens is stability. I'm not exactly sure how the marketplace happens here with guarantees, but in the United States, usually when you buy a block of time, you have a guarantee, and of course, if you've got a sample, you've just got that inherent statistical instability. All of that disappears when you're talking about using a massive passive or census-based currency. And of course, I should mention that we're moving into other platforms as well with our work with ComScore. When that merger happens, we'll be reporting fully on other platforms as well. So all of that leads to the disappearance of zero cells. It leads to being able to report on more networks, and it leads to more stability in the numbers, all of which I think is a benefit for everybody in this room.
So let's, wait a minute, because we've spoken a lot about the advertiser's perspective, and in light of the time we have, I also would like to take the consumer perspective in this, because I think we talk a lot about personalization, and we all are very happy with our Netflix accounts where we only get served the right content at the right time. Well, that's also not a guesswork what they do. So data is also needed to personalize the TV experience. Abbas, moving to you. I know that Sentiance did a pilot with the Flemish public broadcasters, I think a year ago. Can you tell us a bit of the experiences out of that? How were you able to improve the viewing or the personalization experience using the data collected on wearable devices?
Yeah, we're actually still conducting a pilot with a Flemish broadcaster, and we're going to be doing that in other countries as well. What is interesting is, indeed, we rely on a lot of historical data, which is very valuable. What have you watched? Who are you? What have you been doing? But we also have to look at the future, and predict what is your next move? What is your next type of behavior? What is the context that you're going to be in? And by understanding the user and building strong user profiles, you're able to make predictions of, okay, you're watching this type of content right now while you're commuting, but we know that you're on your way to the supermarket, and that's a key moment to position a supermarket ad or a CPG ad. The conversion or the brand awareness that you achieve at that particular moment is so much stronger than late at night when you just finished a TV show and you're ready to go to bed. Even though that's still the right user, maybe the right relevance, but it's not the right moment. You need to find the right moment to get that result that you want to achieve the best ROI for a campaign. From a user perspective, we've seen users now in the past 12 months being fed up with the ad experience. We have been heavily leaning on a digital advertising experience that has been around for over a decade. We need new ways in this market to position advertising in the right way. Consumers do not have issues with advertising because they understand that that's the trade-off to get access to free content or great content. But if it's irrelevant, if it's crowded, they're not going to accept it, and they're going to put up those ad blockers. So I actually applaud the rise of ad blockers because it enables companies like us and some of the other companies here to introduce new business models and to motivate the broadcasters to adopt these models and to work with us to make that user experience as relevant and as compelling as possible. Only then can we achieve that success.
Bruce, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I have a question. It's a big story, but what I don't understand. So if I on the way to the supermarket, I won't use my smartphone to watch Game of Thrones and to receive a commercial then. So how do you expect to bring a commercial or the advertising to the customer?
As a broadcast, I'm back. As a broadcaster, I understand that response because you're thinking very much of the experience of I'm watching the type of content on my device. But that's not relevant. The relevant is how do you deliver the ad in the most in the best way, and that should not be then within the TV experience. It should be a different type of advertisement format. That could be a notification. It could be an idle screen advertisement that you approach the user. We should not be confined when speaking about advertisement of, okay, we need to do this in TV, we need to do this in mobile. No, it's unified. It's device independent, it's platform independent, it's content independent. It's about the relevance. Though you may capture data from TV or from mobile, how eventually you leverage that data to eventually present and serve the ad could be different from the source where you get the data from. So, no, I agree. When you go into the supermarket, you're not going to watch Game of Thrones. Who watches Game of Thrones? But you kidding, great show, great plug-in. But you're looking at how is the best way to serve that ad. And when you're in a supermarket, the best way to serve the ad is to get that kind of notification of, hey, you're in the supermarket. By the way, today, bananas are half off, or we know from your profile that you typically buy toilet paper. We know that you're out of toilet paper at home. You need to buy it. I think Amazon is doing great initiatives in that field with some of the devices that they're out there, but what they're lacking is the right context to bring that type of products to consumers. Yeah. So I hope that addresses your point.
It's very interesting. And how do you? I'm sorry. How do you measure the mood? So it's a big difference between lean forward or lean back. So how do you measure that?
It's a great question. So the technology that we've built up allows us to tap into the sensors of mobile devices. Mm-hmm. Today, devices are equipped with sensors such as everybody knows GPS, but we have accelerometer, the gyroscope, the microphone, the camera. Now, you're not going to get access to the camera and microphone, but that's too private. But getting access to 3 sensors, the GPS, the accelerometer, and gyroscope, already allows us to understand throughout the day what you're doing. Are you in the car? Are you on the bike? Are you walking? Are you sitting? Are you at home? Are you at work? Are you at the supermarket? Are you at the restaurant? And we capture all that data without the input of the user. We actually understand that. Now, to Marco's point, that sounds scary. At the first glance, it certainly does. But if we want to get to that point of achieving relevant advertising, we need the participation of consumers to achieve that. They are putting up ad blockers, but they understand that it's a trade-off. If I want to have that relevant experience, I'm going to have to give away part of my privacy as long as you make sure that you're not misusing it and that you're protecting my data and giving me in return a great user experience and ads that are relevant to my context. So that's a trade-off. And I think we're making strides there. We're not there today, but we're evolving into that era.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
With regards to PII, I mean, it's really interesting that Germany is so scared about privacy because there's a very strong European framework. And some European countries are using this framework to capture data for TV as well. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, as long as you give consent, you can still capture that.
Absolutely.
So I think it's the role and actually mandate for those pay TV operators and mobile operators to actually convince customers that they should agree to give their own data. And as a consumer, then I would be happy to get served something that is more relevant to me. And I always like to give this example. Some guys are 26, they're still studying, they're still living at home in Munich, but the same guy might be 26, startup guru, 2 little children. One will be relevant for Pampers ad, the other won't be. In the current demographic, they will just be male 26. If they had allowed for their data to be looked at, then one would get the Pampers ad and the other would get the coffee ad. And I think this is really relevant. So I think we have, you platform and broadcasters have really a mandate to get the consumer to get convinced to give their data, because then there's no issue. If they give consent, there's really no issue.
I think the common denominator in what I hear of all you say is that basically this advanced data possibilities help us to cut through the clutter and therefore make the whole experience a lot better. I kind of do that to make a bridge towards you, Bruce, because I think one of the most exciting stories on data usage in the US and TV system is the Obama campaign. And with the upcoming political campaigns, probably the Republicans learned their lesson. They read the Wall Street Journal articles on this. So can you shed a little bit of light on how the Democratic Party did this in 2012 and what how they were able to cut through the clutter?
Yes, and I think just to start off, other research has been done that shows that consumers do enjoy television more when the advertising is relevant to them. So if you're watching sports and perhaps a Pampers ad comes on, for most men that will not be something that they enjoy, but some of them will. But what Obama for America did was and the United States is interesting in how we do elections, in that it's a national election, but it really depends upon which states you carry because of the Electoral College, which you can talk to me afterwards. But anyway, it's really about local markets. So Obama for America had 10 segments of voters that they wanted to reach. We didn't know who those segments were. They just called them segments A, B, C, and D. In 44 markets. They sent that list of voters with name and addresses to a third party. We got our operators, the people that provide us with the data, to send their name and addresses to the third party. It was a match. It came back to us with our typical household ID, which we don't know what that household is. It's always been anonymized. But in this case, it had that anonymous household ID with Obama segment A, Obama segment B, Obama segment C. We did another thing to that, which is we divided each of those segments into heavy, medium, and light television users. So within each segment, which of them watched a lot of television, which watched a medium amount and a moderate amount. And so then what the Obama for the America campaign did was look at essentially now about 40 segments across 44 markets, and they used that to buy television in that market. What they didn't do is they didn't tell the television stations that this is what they were doing. So the television stations were blind as to the actual segments that the campaign was using. So if half of the party in a negotiation is blind to what the other half wants, the other half has the advantage. So the Obama for the America people felt that they were able to get 20% better pricing, 20% better efficiency through this method. Because they were able to go after inventory that wasn't priced correctly because the stations didn't know that inventory was particularly valuable to them. So it delivered efficiency to Obama for America, and also how they bought television was very differently. So if you look at a typical buy in those 44 markets, and we did this for them over a year, we did the matching twice over the course of a year, they tended to buy 60 television networks deep and throughout the day. Romney, the Republicans who turned us down, they did a much more traditional political buy, which was just buying primetime television and news, and they bought about 10 stations deep. So a very different buying strategy. And what happened after the election, the Republicans wised up and realized that using big data, using what Rentrak's able to deliver, gave Obama for America an advantage, and now essentially we are the political currency. So the Republicans see it, the Democrats see it, and also we've sold the same information to the television stations, not on a custom basis, but on a syndicated basis, so that now all parties have the same weapons. And so perhaps the cost advantage isn't quite what it was when just one side had the atomic bomb and the other side didn't, but the whole marketplace of buying television for political campaigns is transformed in the United States. And I think that does give an advantage to the consumer, because if you're now a Democrat or a Republican, you're going to not always see the same ad again and again and in the same place, and get sick and tired of it. It's going to be dispersed throughout the day. They're going to have different types of advertising. I think it's a creative strategy and an advertising strategy that not only benefits both sides of the marketplace in terms of the buyers and sellers, but also benefits the consumer experience, because if you're watching the news, you're not going to see the same political ads over and over again.
Interesting. Is the case study on your website?
Yes, we do have information about it.
Cool.
Very interesting.
You can look at my blog. I've talked about it there as well.
So before we open up to questions from the public, there's one final topic I would like to discuss. Mark Zuckerberg basically gave us a 5-year term before he starts to control what we see and what we don't see in the media. So what are we going to do? A question to all of you. So feel free to step up and throw your opinion in. What do we have to do as a TV industry to leapfrog the internet, to leapfrog Facebook in the upcoming 5 years? So what are we going to do about it?
I think we have to accept that it's going to be technology-led. And I'm turning to you because you say, oh, we're not going to be able to launch AdSmart in 2 years. We also have to build it. Why would you have to build it? I mean, just come to TVB. We can do it for you. But these traditional companies have not realized that the digital has arrived. In the UK, digital advertising is bigger than TV. Bigger than TV. And it will be very soon, Germany, the same. So unless TV companies, traditional TV companies, accept the fact that we're moving to a digital, technology-led, software-led, and consumer-led, there's a risk we will fail as an industry.
I think that's a pretty strong statement. Any reactions?
I think that there's value in Facebook data. I don't see them as a threat. I think it's added value. Nielsen is already working with Facebook in terms of verification and ratings in their system, but they're not the default source. You know, in a few years' time, there could be other platforms, social platforms, other than Facebook, where there's value. Young people are not using Facebook today. A lot of them are using Snapchat in the U.S. So good luck to Mark Zuckerberg. But it's fine. I don't see them as a threat. I think data could be leveraged in so many different ways, and the more data we have, and our ability to marinate that and to create relevance and context out of that data is what the real value is. So I welcome companies like Facebook, Snapchat, and everybody else out there, Instagram, to be part of that ecosystem of capturing that data and making the whole experience relevant to users.
So Facebook is the second largest video distributor after YouTube, basically, and probably AGF will have to embrace Facebook as they did with YouTube and try to somehow make data also available for this for the panel, for the unified panel. And at the end, it is clear that the TV industry needs data wherever they come from, and the regulatories have to basically open up certain aspects as far as this is, let's say, in line with what we will expect next year from the European directive. Because on one side you have the power of television, you have the power of still addressing millions of people, and you have the intelligence of data. This will be a perfect match, and the interactivity, addressable TV. So I'm very much looking forward.
Cool. So,
can I add one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I think as much as we try to conjure ourselves as being so advanced and sophisticated, the market has a lot of opportunities, we also need to respect that the traditional TV buyers of advertising still do it in a very classical way. You'll be shocked how TV advertising is still bought today in some markets, including the US. So I think we need to be aware of how we approach these buyers and not to be sounding too sophisticated. I think that it will go step by step in terms of how we create that ecosystem and create that relevance. You know, TV buying in the US, in some markets, is still done through a fax machine. I didn't know fax machines still existed, but it really is the truth. So, you know, these guys are not going to be ready for sophisticated platforms, and they're going to be like, whoa, you know. So we need to do that step by step. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to get there.
Yeah, Bruce, go ahead.
Yeah.
Last remark.
So I think you're absolutely right. And one thing that we have done at Rentrak is make sure that we are in the financial systems that drive the agency. So agencies use things, MediaOcean, MX, Donovan, Strata. In the United States, there are financial systems that the agency use. So we are in that. So that's part of the warp and woof. I think the other thing, one thing that we've talked about different platforms, but we also have not talked about, I think, three other key elements that have to happen. Number one is the time frame has to change. In the United States, 3 days is pretty much the currency of how inventory is valued. Well, the reality is, across these platforms, you can get 60%, 70% more audience if you look at it on a 28-day basis. So how do we monetize that missing inventory? How do we measure that? How do we report that? I think that's going to be very important for the buyers and sellers to come together on that, because we can start measuring that. We are measuring it, we are reporting it, and with ComScore we'll be doing it across platforms, over the top. But I don't think the industry is coalesced with how to sell it on a time basis. So it's not just platform, it's also time. And I think the other thing that we haven't talked about a lot here is consumer-generated content. So when you think about YouTube, I don't know how many of you have teenage girls, not to sound sexist, but my nieces, they go to these YouTube conferences where there are YouTube stars. And that is something that we just haven't worked into our vocabulary yet, of how do we sell that inventory, because there's a huge audience there with consumer-generated content. So some things that we have to address that I don't think we have done yet as an industry.
And there I would like to put a pin in the discussion on stage, otherwise we lose the opportunity for the audience to ask questions. Are there any questions from the audience to the panel or to one of the panel members? There's a question there in the back. Is there a microphone? Oh. Yeah, there was another gentleman in the back sitting
Up the stairs.
up the stairs. Okay, otherwise just shout out. Let yourself be heard.
Hello, thank you. We talked about regulation and about what's happening in Brussels. It is realistic that one of the outcomes could be that there is an opt-in required for using these data for targeted advertising. How does that affect the future as you see it? How do you get around that, if that would be the case?
Laurence, are you able to answer that question?
So in the current framework, you don't need opt-in for census data measurement as long as you make statistics of it, which is basically what we do in Slovenia, Croatia, etc. So we're able to collect basically 100%. Now, whether the platform we do the work with, the Deutsche Telekom, Telekom Slovenia, etc., want to then use this data for their own targeted advertising, this is where they need the consent. If they manage through amazing content to really convince the customer to give consent, I don't see why it would be an issue. We did another test in Ireland where 85% of the people gave consent. 85% of people in Ireland, this is still 1,000 times more than the Nielsen data in Ireland. 1,000 times more, 85% consent. So I don't see it as an issue, really.
Well, if I may, how does the gentleman from Sky see that? Because in the UK, AdSmart is a big success, but in the UK there is an informed consent regime, so it's opt-out. Imagine you move to Germany now with your product. It's very likely that it might be opt-in. How does that affect your plans?
I don't know about the effects, but to give you an answer, what's happened with the opt-in, we really have the opt-in yet, and especially for the future too, if we have the transparency that we work with personal data for advertising. So this is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you can't use that. So the question isn't if you have an opt-in or not. So if you work with personal data for advertising, opportunities, it's absolutely necessary to use opt-ins. So.
Do we have time for one more question? Yeah, so there's a gentleman sitting over there. Oh, sorry, it's a lady.
Not a gentleman,
it's the light blocking me. My
next
apologies.
year I'll let my hair grow, then that's
Shows
okay.
the ignorance of the TV industry.
Yes.
Sorry.
And it's the Frauenquote again, so most likely. My question is twofold. You've been talking a lot about ads, and I don't see, well, you're talking about relevancy of ads, and for me as a consumer, ads are not really relevant. If I get them, I want them to fit, but I care about the content, so I would like to know how you add data to the ad inventory so it matches your data, which I think should be pretty difficult. And also if you would use data to enhance the content portfolio that you will offer, so you can match that also to the data you collect.
That's a great question. Bruce, can you answer that?
Actually, that's one of the easier things that we can do with the data, because what we can do and what we have done for networks is create what we call viewer as target. So we make viewers of a program the target, and then we look at what other programs they watch. So you can use that for promotions. So you know if people watch Game of Thrones and you want them to watch your particular sci-fi, ice castle adventure, you know where else they're watching, and you can put ads on those programs to drive them to your program. What we also have done is we can identify, we have seen, so there's a whole promotional activity to get people to your programs. What we've also seen is I've created segments of new viewers, that is people who are likely to watch new programming, and they're just early adopters of new programming, and look at them 1 year, and those people the next year, because you have to use it to predict, are also, they remain adopters of new programming. So again, you can use promotion activity to find those people, speak to those new adopters, and get them to watch your program. So the nice thing about these huge massive data sets is you can find viewers and you can speak to them and tell them about the new programs or help create new programs that they want to watch.
I think that's a great point. I think helping in discovery is still, the discovery of great content in the world of abundance is extremely important. I think we have to close it off here. We're out of time. Before I thank all my guests for this lively debate on stage, I hope we've been able to shed some light on this topic that normally scares us. As a TV network in Germany, of course we have an interest in this, and I can only do a call out to the German TV industry that we see that it's not as scary. We have live examples from Slovenia, from the US. We have a lot of activity in the German market, and I think if we work together and open up those data sources that we have and that we can collect, I think as an overall industry, and especially as the thematic TV channels, I think there could be a very bright future for us. But it all depends on the way we cooperate. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.